let's talk about beginner guitars. I'm not even wearing any pants right now. Beginner guitars are guitars you begin with. Duh. So I was just thinking about my journey with guitar. It's still just starting. I've only been playing for a very small amount of time. And how I got started, and the fact that it is the Christmas Kwanzaa season, which is where a lot of young people in this world will be getting themselves a beginner guitar as a gift from their parents or their boyfriends or their girlfriends or something like that. And I was just thinking about maybe a couple hints when it comes to beginner guitars. Now, let me start out with a little story here. I started the way most people start with guitar. I went to Guitar Center. I didn't want to spend a ton of money because it's one of those like, what if I start and I don't like it and I just give up and I don't touch it anymore. I don't want to like be a bunch of money out just because I wanted to play guitar and it didn't work out. I got the starter model, which is what a lot of people do. I went and grabbed a Squier Bullet Strat. It's a piece of crap. It's just terrible. And honestly, it made me not want to play guitar. And I was kind of worried that I wasn't cut out to play guitar. And that's kind of frustrating. Do not buy one of those brand spanking new in the boxes starter packs, a Squier Bullet whatever, or an Epiphone Les Paul Special. Those are meant to be beginner guitars, but they're really just fun guitars for experienced guitarists to mess around with. That's kind of where it is. What I did after I figured out I hated my Bullet Strat is I went to a pawn shop in my town. At the time I was living in Bellingham, Washington. There's some great pawn shops in there. So I went to a pawn shop with my Bullet Strat, which was still basically brand new because it did not take long for me to realize I hated it. And I was surrounded by great musicians who told me it was a piece of crap. And I basically just picked out a junky guitar, went up to the pawnbroker and was like, can I switch this Bullet Strat for that piece of crap over there? They had no problem with that. It was a brand new Squier. Brand name. Even if it's a Bullet, man, it's going to fly off the shelves. There's going to be some parent trying to buy their kid a guitar that, you know, they look at it, it's shiny, there's no scratches or dings, there's nothing wrong with it, good to go. You know, more power to them. That does work for some people. Did not work for me. So I traded it for this. It started as an Aria STG 005, which I have a review on. I got this Aria. There's just all sorts of crap wrong with it. Like the action was like a quarter-mile high, and the tuners were crap, and the string trees were cut in the strings. And the bridge had burrs on it, and it was all rusty, and I was missing springs on the back, and the ground wire was detached, and the finish was all messed up and everything. And so, what I did was I fixed it. In fixing this guitar, it made me play more, because I fearlessly, you know, you got to dig into it. You know, what if I screw this guitar up? There's no worries when you paid basically nothing for a guitar. I ended up with a really nice player, and by the time this, which is my main guitar, was done, I was playing every day for hours because, you know, while I was working on this guitar, I'd set the action and try to play it and go, oh man, that feels better, or that feels like crap, you know. Kind of what I recommend with starter guitars is maybe buy a piece of crap that's not brand new. Just go to a pawn shop, because your $90 or your $120 or whatever it is now that you're going to spend on a Squier Bullet might get you something that's a little more quality in the overall. You can get plenty of Squiers from like the late 90s, early 2000s that are, you know, a little heavier and they can take a pounding a little better. They're not just like really cheaply made Chinese like pieces of junk. And so you're spending that $120 on a guitar that, yeah, it's dinged up and there's things wrong with it, but like you're not getting something that's just completely unusable. Because with a Squier Bullet, I would have had to replace the neck and eventually all the pickups and all the electronics. Everything was just crap. And so for the same amount of money, I got a guitar that someone took pride in one day. It had just been used, like beat up. And so of course there's no resale value in that. Is the point I'm trying to make here is that I was inspired to play by getting the correct beginner guitar. And the thing is, a beginner guitar is not any specific model. It's just the guitar you begin on, you know? I started on this Aria, even though I owned so many guitars before this Aria. I grabbed this Aria and I beat it up, and this is like the third refinish on this thing. You know, at one point I had taken a heat gun to it and scraped off all the paint and burnt some words into it, which you can't see, and I'm happy you can't. But, you know, I finally repainted it, and I love how it looks. It was done by me, for me, and that's a beautiful thing. That feels really good. You end up with a guitar you absolutely love at all times, and you've put your work into it, and in the process you start understanding how guitars work, and how wiring works. I could switch the pickups on this, and I was like, oh, well, that was easy. I don't need to go to a luthier for that. One of those things where maybe taking a cut in the wow factor may help you in the long run, you know? The wow factor being like, whoa, that is so shiny and so new, it's so pretty, like, I want it, give it to me. Like, no. When I bought this Aria, you can check out the video. It was the first video I posted. I think it's still up. It was a piece of junk. It was freaking terrible. And I knew that I need to make this guitar good. And in the process of making that guitar good, I built a passion for guitars. I also learned a ton of things about guitars, which is awesome. And what I ended up doing, again, was I challenged myself. Let's find the cheapest pawn shop guitar I can find and make it great. So I ended up with this beauty. I call it my Stevie, because it kind of reminds me of Stevie Ray Vaughan. It cost me $19. So I bought this guitar at $19. The tag said neck is shot, and yes, the neck was shot. And I poured my heart into it. I pulled the fretboard off and switched out the truss rod, which you can do, by the way. Don't be afraid of doing that stuff. It ended up not really working because I didn't really have good glue. And when I started using the truss rod, the fretboard pulled off, and the frets were all sharp on the end and everything. The pick guard was white and had just terrible pickups in it, and the electronics were all gross and gooey and sticky. Now they're all smooth because I'm a nerd. So when I bought this, it was a Behringer V-Tone Strat, and I ended up $19 out the door. It was great. I mean, great deal. Not a great guitar. It was completely screwed. And from the ground up, I just started working on it. The body right here, original finish on the body, and honestly, it's not contoured or anything. It's a Behringer. It's made to go along with their crappy amps that they make. Took the white pick guard off, and I ordered a fender replacement. And the problem is the fender replacement is built for a Fender, which is a different body shape. And so I ended up cutting this pick guard, which probably looks good here, but if you look a lot closer, it's a total piece of shit. Crap, sorry. And the pick guard, when the electronics ran, didn't fit, so I had to route out some of the body. And by the end of that, suddenly, I was checking out guitar players that played single coil Strats, which is why I named this thing Stevie, because Stevie Ray Vaughan. Yeah, I replaced the neck and did all sorts of things. I guess it's another tale of, like, you get a beginner guitar, the guitar you begin with, and you make it into something you want to play. And now this is in my regular gig rotation. I just really appreciate the idea that a beginner guitar should be a guitar where you really are learning. You know, I've met plenty of players that are just crazy and can shred me under the table if they need to make a truss rod adjustment. Meanwhile, I'm over here with my Allen wrench and I know exactly what to do, you know. They need a saddle adjustment. They're, you know, running to their luthier, oh man, I need a setup. You don't need a setup. You just need to learn something. And so I got this piece of crap and I learned everything I could. And by the end of it, I was inspired. And I've put so much work into these things that, like, I can't help but play them because I know why they feel so good. Because I did it. I made this guitar. This is a rambling. I'm just rambling because I've had this thought in my head all day, all week, really. And I haven't posted a talking video for a while because I've been really busy trying to create a profitable music business, which is something else I'll talk about in the future, is like making money off music from the perspective of someone that makes no money off their music and really wants to. I'd love to give a shout out to Living in Asia, the Budget Guitarist. It's a channel that's really been inspiring me. The fellow that runs the channel just takes a beautiful approach to everything and just talks about, you know, the idea. He doesn't live in Asia, by the way. It's called Living in Asia because all of these guitars that are very budget, you don't expect them to be made in Valencia, California. They're made in China, Indonesia, Korea, Asia. They're made in Asia. And he features a lot of very affordable guitars, like the Amun Les Paul copy, and there's like some Walmart guitars. I think it was like Buy Good or something like that. It was like a Strat copy. And even Asian-made amplifiers like the Champ 20 by Fender, things like that. Yeah, so if you haven't checked out Living in Asia, the Budget Guitarist, you should probably check him out. But you know, I'm pretty sure the only person watching my channel is my mom. Love you, Mom. You've been wonderful. I've been Fluff. Make sure to be your own best friend and take care of yourself, or else nobody else will.